Good evening. This is Elaine. I'm Elaine Laroa, and I am the resident quantum living coach here at Spiritual Life Center. How many of you here have taken the Q process? All right, I love it. So for some of you, this will be your introduction to what we call our quantum living process, which in most spiritual communities, or we're finding that these days, it's about not just knowing how to navigate the world, but it's also knowing how to actually handle your reactions to it. Right? And so we're going to have a process here at Spiritual Life Center that many of us, how about the word shadow work? Does that sound familiar, or do people familiar with any types of shadow work? Yes. So in many spiritual communities, especially at Spiritual Life Center, since we are an interfaith unity community, many people have learned different ways to actually regulate. How do you handle this world as spiritual beings having a human experience and being able to integrate your spiritual practices, your emotional intelligence, and tie it all into the practical 3D experience you're having in this world. So quantum living is, for us here at Spiritual Life Center, a shared language. So it's not to say that there aren't other tools that you can use that work perfectly. In fact, there might be and should be some aspects of tonight's training that you'll say I'm familiar with, especially since it's built on a lot of science, on back of neuroscience, neurobiology, our wave links, what's happening in quantum physics with a better understanding of who we are on a cellular level, and how our thoughts, as we would say in unity, how our thoughts create our reality, and how we can master the little monkey mind that's happening between our ears that have an impact on our day-to-day lives. So it's a pleasure that you're joining me for this 2-hour as what I have deemed the Wednesday Night Wow program, and welcome to those of you who are streaming online, the program on Who Have We Come Here to Be? So with that being said, if you are following us online, and as you come in the room, we want to make sure that you all have a clipboard with tonight's handout. We are actually going to take a little snidget of the 6-week course that I'll start teaching next week. And the heart of the course is creating for you a personalized, what we call a cue card, or a personal card to find out for yourself what are these shadows or limiting beliefs that might be keeping you from being your highest expression. So you're going to have an experience of the course of the next 2 hours to be able to identify those noble qualities of who you have come here to be, and then have your own self the experience of identifying what might be the beliefs or the thoughts that are conscious and most likely unconscious that keep you from having that felt experience. So thank you for sharing this Wednesday night. If you are online, there are also downloadable handouts for tonight. It was part of the Eventbrite program, and Cameron, a big thanks to Cameron, our AV tech for the evening. He will have it linked in the chat for tonight's live stream as well. So let's go ahead and start the evening with just getting ready and being in our heartfelt space. So if you'll just relax for a moment, have your feet on the ground, feel comfortable to close your eyes if you'd like. Just allow me to get us in that space for receiving tonight. Join me now, just close your eyes. Feel your feet planted on the ground. Take deep breaths with me, a deep breath in to the count of 4. Inhale, hold, and exhale. Do that 2 more times with me. Inhale, deep breath. Inhale in. And hear yourself exhale. Let it out. Just continue to breathe in, breathe out in a way that's comfortable for you. Visualize and imagine, if you will, a grounding cord. The tailbone of for those who are familiar with your red chakra, your base chakra, just imagine a grounding cord that is firmly connected to your being. And see it go through your chair, which supports you. Then go down, down, down into the center of the earth, into Mother Gaia itself. Visualize just plugging into this beautiful energy of Mother Earth. Feeling fully supported, not just physically in your body, but a connection to this planet itself. And with this deep breath in, and with every breath out, just see yourself calling back all the fragments of yourself. Every transaction just to get here. Every thought of what you have yet to do, what you are missing from taking this time out for yourself. Instead, with every breath in, feel the connection that comes from the source being below, and just breathe out all those other monkey mind commitments. Then visualize and imagine, if you will, a golden ball about a foot above your head. And as we say, as above, so below, imagine this golden ball just filled with the divine energy from above. Just visualize yourself reaching up and breaking that ball and feeling this golden ray of energy just wash over you like a bath of light, warm. And receive that through all the energy in your body. And as you receive this energy from below, this golden rays of light from above, visualize and imagine all of them hitting every level of your chakras, opening you up, your heart, your mind, your emotions, to this experience we'll have with one another tonight. Tonight we build a sacred cocoon. We are energy at the core of our being. And whether we are here in this room, or if you are viewing from home, or even watching the recording, there is no space and time. We are creating the connection now to be witnesses of each other's traumas, if need be, but more importantly, to be the witness of our magnificence. So let's take that time here, an intention in our heart, to see those heart lines, my heart to yours, to each and every one in this room, to each and every one who may be viewing. As you sit here, and if you so are willing, open your heart as well. Thank you for saying yes. Yes to exploring. Yes to curiosity. Yes to being open-hearted. And to be still to that sweet whisper that is always present, ever ready to reveal. Feel that now as we go into the silence for just a moment to ponder, who have you come here to be? Thank you, sweet spirit. So go ahead and now feel yourself coming into body. Maybe rub your hands together, feel your feet. 5, feeling fully present. 4, wiggling your toes, moving your arms. 3, opening your eyes. 2, fully present, fully present. And 1. Thank you. Doesn't that feel yummy sometimes? Well, tonight, it's a pleasure to welcome you here for the introductions, and it's going to start a little bit with a shared agreement. It's always important when we are in an opportunity that you open up your heart space, and this will be an interactive evening for us to, if you should want, to share your experience so that we can learn from one another. We are beautiful mirrors for one another, and oftentimes you need to see something reflected back to you to be able to have a full understanding of what you might not see because of the blinders of your own experience. So today, whether it was this meditation that you just went through, whether that was uncomfortable for you, just be with that. And shelf anything, for tonight is about you connecting with your inner spirit. It's about you finding what is your truth. Not anything here at Spiritual Life Center that you have to take. I love that we talk about Spiritual Life Center as being a center for higher unlearning, because most of the time we have picked up along the way beliefs that no longer serve us, whether it's from organized religion or your family structure. So today we're going to actually see if we can just stay present. Can we be open? Can you do your best to recognize a judgment or a criticism and just see it and put a pin on it while you're there? If you hear some sharing, whether it's during our talk here or afterwards, let's know that this is a no advice zone, that there's no need to comment or tell someone, oh, that happened to me too, or anything else. And let's just stay focused on the topic. There will be opportunities, whether it's on one-on-one or in a group experience. Please also take care of yourself. We're going to talk about what Q is and what Q is not. And just know that whatever is shared here, as in any of our classes or our spiritual exploration, that this is a sacred space of confidentiality, and that personal stories out beyond this room aren't really to be repeated. This is our wonderful opportunity to be in that moment. So what is Q and what is Q not? So as part of the shared agreement is to understand that Q we often respond to is that I'm not a therapist, but I am a certified quantum living coach. So that took me several years, and I stay up with my certification. Dr. 3 PhDs, Dr. Reverend Gary Simmons and his wife Jane Simmons, and Dr. Rima Bonario are the developers of this program. And as I said, it is a model of different neuroscience as well as spiritual practices, and you'll learn more about that. But what it's not, when we explore these things, is it's not therapy. But in this process of awareness, as we get to know a little bit of what makes me tick, what makes you tick, there might be things that come up to the surface, and if they do, just know that that might be an opportunity to say there might be a need for deeper healing. So when you're learning something new, whether it's skiing or learning how to ride a bike, my brother thought it would be a great way to teach me how to ski, but he said, you don't need the bunny slopes, and he took me right up the mountain, and I just fell all the way down. So, as you know, we're going to take the baby steps, because the idea here is to actually learn the principles. So, in the same way, when I ask you to take care of yourself, don't take a topic that is, on a scale of 1 to 10, a major trauma. Because as you know, that when you bring up something that is into your trauma, then you bring trauma into your body. And then you are no longer able to comprehend or take in skills. You are just transported right back to that triggering moment. Whether if the triggering moment is a fight or something that happened to you in life. So tonight, we want to be able to figure out how to learn what is this quantum living process. And I'm going to give you a tiny bit, which starts with first doing the practices that we're going to do together. And in doing so, if I ask you to think of things, or if we look at you sharing different stuff, well, we're going to keep it at, as I would say, a paper cut level. Okay? Paper cut levels, because we don't want, in this process, as you're learning the skill set, it's the training wheels time, where we got the training wheels. We're not going to take you up on a mountain. So we're going to become a great opportunity to just learn those things, our emotional intelligence, our spiritual intelligence, and then how do we navigate this world through this process. So are we in agreement with those shared agreements? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So when we get started in a process, it's always like, what's in it for me? Why would I take this class? Why is this important? And I love this. These are the 5 topics that were brought by Bronnie Ware, and she was a hospice nurse. And through her career, she actually wrote a book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, Life Transformed by the Dearly Departed. And I love it in this process, as she was able to identify that people felt this at the end of their lives. I wish I had courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. Common also was, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And the last most common one was, I wish that I had let myself be happier. What they found was they realized that happiness was a day-to-day choice, and that it's just not enough for us if you don't make the intention to explore for yourself what that is. Well, here in Unity, we talk about affirmations and denials, do we not? And so the denials, this might be if you don't want this to happen, what might be the affirmation, or what might be the positive aspects that you would want to do if you don't want to get to the end of your life and have this experience? So let's look at this as a possibility. What if we honored our dreams? What if we lived our priorities? What if we could be authentic with ourselves, actually show up of who we really are, if we even know what that is? What if we made nurturing connections an important part of our lives? And lastly, what if we actually gave ourselves permission to choose happiness? And if so, what would that even look like? The issue is that we find that oftentimes, how do we do that? And I'm going to tell you a little bit of what this quantum living process will look like. Well, first of all, it's self-directed. A lot of these will be as classic questions I pose to you, as I just did in those opening slides. It's for you to get in reflective and find out what those answers, your own self-inquiry, so to speak. We'll do some creative visualizations because we have learned that where is the strongest muscle? Where does change happen? And it's not from taking on intellectual ideas in our brains. It's really about taking that into your heart space, and through your heart being the place that actually directs the changes within your physical body and in your experience. So we'll use a lot of creative visualizations to some sense. And then there's memory. What is your memory, and where's the brain science about the neural pathways that happen? So many of you might know that the monks used to say they would take young boys under the age of 5 to actually say that, parents would give over their young children over to the monastery to study for years to be able to be in the monasteries and be monks. And oftentimes it was like, why so young? How could a 5-year-old know? And the concept of saying that psychologists will tell you, well, their response was, because you show me a 7-year-old and I'll show you the man. Show me a 7-year-old or a woman. Why? Because we know now from psychology that oftentimes things that happen to us from the age 7 and below, we have stored in our memory. We may not have a place for it with how we actually perceive something happening outside of us, but if we didn't get or have the levels of what we needed in those moments and times, then they just are like operating systems, and we'll talk more about that. So our memories play in if you are able to tap into it. There's heart coherence, which, as you know more in the studies, they'll talk again about having our heads and our hearts in the same place. There's a lot of mindfulness. That's a great little buzzword that they're talking about. But the reality is, it's us really truly understanding the magic of this human body and how it was meant to operate, and how we can actually achieve a more satisfying, rewarding, powerful experience in our day-to-day lives. You're also going to see that there's myth and story, because you will define for yourself what those myths and stories you have and how they impact you. As we say here in Unity, your thoughts create your reality. And what is a belief? A belief is simply a thought that you continue to think. So it has an opportunity to explore all those things, and in here with a touch of spiritual principle. For those of you who will know that sometimes in this aspect of us saying that the knowledge is within, that we are all sparks of the divine, and there is divine intelligence, connection to infinite power and healing and process if we can get quiet. And so we will use that as part of this process. So the program objectives are, if there were things that they talked about, as Bonnie Ware in her research was, how do we get to those things? How do we get to living our authentic selves? How do we get to nurture those relationships and do all the things that we wish we could have done, including honoring our dreams and choosing happiness for ourselves? So the objective of the entire Quantum Living program is really about increasing this capacity to live with a more purposeful or intentional and joy-filled life. It is about awakening this inherent wholeness that is within each one of us and opening to this authentic expression and knowing the rewards when you actually walk this world and live this life from a place of authenticity and a place of healing and letting go of what no longer serves you. And then that could bring in this wonderful, again, unique heart wisdom that we hope that each of you can explore. Now, a little bit about how do you get there. I know for me, and I'll just share the personal story there, that when I came to Spiritual Life Center, I came from a place where I was actually leaving a 14-and-a-half-year committed relationship. And I was devastated. I came back to the state of California. I was born and raised here in Sacramento, but my father's cancer had come back from remission, so I was coming home to leave a career, after leaving a career of almost 30 years, to be able to take over my father's business while he was going through 3 rounds of radiation and chemotherapy. So I took over his insurance business, so I can do that. Friends of mine said, you're an insurance agent. And I said, listen, let's be clear. If my parents had an ice cream shop, I would be selling ice cream right now. so the ways of realizing for me that who am I? What is my role? Is it I'm back to living into a home where I'm the 15-year-old daughter again. And at that time, I was 50. And to make my life upside down. And it certainly wasn't I watched my bank account being where it was, and if it wasn't the title and it wasn't the accomplishments, I really went through this identity of who am I? What is my identity and what is the role that plays into it? So today I'm going to ask you to think about that for yourselves. There's going to be so many hats we play, right? In the role of our identities. And in that case, we start looking at, what are the barriers that keep us from living our fulfilling life? Do you define it in just one way? I am a wife, I am a daughter, I'm a mother, I am my career title. And how do you balance that if being good at any one of those does not necessarily conflict? How do you divvy up the time? How do you multiply yourselves so that you can be in multiple places at one time? So we start looking at that objective. What is this role of identity, and where does it come from? And again, those are the questions. Who are you really? What makes you uniquely you? How do you see yourself and think of yourself? Even if, because here's the secret, even if it's not at all how people see you. What do you think of yourself? And then what makes up the sense of identity for you? So think about it this way. I'm not a technical whiz, but I got people comfortable with your computer or your cell phones or whatever else. You might be familiar with the terminology, what is your operating system? So for those of you who are the old PCs, you've got the DOS operating systems, and if you got your Macintosh, it's another operating system. But the bottom line is a computer it's programmed, right? You know that you're going to get a certain thing when you turn on a computer. There are certain things that are on default, right? Imagine if you and you have to learn how to navigate that program. The other aspect is, I thought it was funny, when in your operating system, you might know. For example, in your operating system, what is your thoughts, your beliefs, what are you programmed in the area of religion, perhaps? What is your thoughts and programs as under politics, under relationships, under your food, your relationship with food? How are you programmed? Did you come from a family that actually valued emotion or expression? Physical contact, or did you come from a family that was very reserved? Was your family loud and boisterous and you had parties and food, or did you come from a family that was reserved? There's such a difference about what your operating system is, and that can come, as we know, from your different personalities. There's an opportunity to look. In business, there was a big thing about the Briggs-Meyer, so that people didn't have to put someone down. They would just go, oh, they are EFGD or whatever. Or they would learn what your personality traits was. This person is a comforter, and this person is the negotiator. And that way, we can realize that everybody is needed on a team, but you just needed to know what you are wired to do, right? So, but the question becomes, when you have an operating system, does it serve you? And do we know that we have control of it? When I realized, as I got into, I'm on the verge of being 60 now, but when I realized that the operating system has a default of size, I think 0.10 or 8 on some fonts, I realized that I can control whether the font size is that big or not. So it's amazing. If you pick up my phone, my font sizes are bigger because the default system doesn't serve me. So we're going to take a chance to look at that. And when we talk about this whole component, we're really talking about the beliefs, your values, your memories. You're looking at your attachments or aversions. And these are things that are also your neural pathways and your nervous system habits that go along with that. So what do I mean by that? We talked about in some ideas that when you look at some of those top things, your beliefs, your values, your memories, a lot again might come directly from your childhood. Be asking yourselves, how did those impact the way you are today? And the interesting thing is that when we start looking at neural pathways, the last two, the neural pathways and the nervous system habits, many of those are really unconscious. You don't know, you don't physically have an idea of what little thoughts are connecting every time something happens. And your nervous system habits that happen. But for aversions, I'm just curious. When we think of something like attachment or aversions, when you think of your happiest memories, maybe it's you went to Disneyland, or maybe has anybody ever eaten too much of a good thing and it gone bad, right? So, or you ate some bad food and you got the worst ever food poisoning, and now you can't ever eat that item again. It's interesting because your body stores that experience not only in your memory, but actually those aversions get stored in your neural pathways. So those aversions just become, you're so brilliantly wired that your body puts you in a position to actually be in your favor. So if you actually find yourself like, oh, I know if I go down in a certain dark area, it's going to be bad and it's going to be scary. Do you think that every time you see something like that, you're never going to do that again, whether it's a real belief or not? If you learn to swim as I did, my dad throwing me into the deep end, then there's an aversion and there's a memory, and I may never even think about it, but there's a fear of those kind of things, or even the idea that adults can't even be trusted to basically take care of you, all right? So we've got to identify, when we do that, some of those operating systems. And the interesting thing about it is, just like your computers, those things happen on a day-to-day basis. Your brain is so brilliant. It's just tacking away, going, and it's making decisions for you without you even knowing it. It really takes time for you to say, I want to unpack. I want to be aware of what I just do naturally, right? How many of you find you buy the same, even if you find something good, and then you might try something on the outside, if you've gone to a restaurant and you order the same thing over and over again, and then one day your friend orders one all the time, and you go, gosh, I don't go out very often, but she talks about that tasting so good, so I'll order it, and then you get it, and you spend that money on the night out that you don't get very often, and then you're not happy with the meal. And so what are you going to do? You're going to go back to what you know. And think, if that works for you, that's great. But what if there's all this life experience that you have decided that's it? Because I don't want the disappointment that something else may not be what's there for me. So we're going to look at that, and we can have that opportunity to really just understand that we run everything, our experience, through our operating system, through those levels of our beliefs, our values, our memories, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And the reality is you have neural pathways that are so smart that if you see something, it doesn't wait for you to think it through. It's completely unconscious. It sees something, it tells you no. Everything about your decision is made before you even consciously decide to do it or not do it. So we got to take a moment when we talk about, it's easy to see those first few slides that talk about, oh, let's move to having this way that we don't have those regrets at the end of our lives. But if we're on autopilot, so I'll be the first one to say, if you are happy, fulfilled, are never triggered, you never go just down a rabbit hole and react in ways that you wish you did, if you are having that kind of life, then I just need you to come and be the instructor here to show us how. Because the reality is, this is the human experience. And the beauty about it is we all have different stories, but we actually are having similar experiences. Your story, your background, your operating system will be unique to you, but each one of us are humans wired in our operating systems, and we have different filters and we have different bugs that maybe just need to be looked at. So the question just becomes, could life be better? If life is bad, then this is great. It only can go up from here. If life is good, can it be fantastic? If life is fantastic, are you ready to just have the miracle life where you speak it and you have instant manifestation? So for me, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter where you are. It's about you becoming aware of where you are and then having this opening of the power for you to actually shift and create that new reality for yourself. So, what does that filter look like for us? Well, we see everything through that filter, every single thing. It's going to be that train that's running in your lives, your memories, your values, your beliefs, your aversions, your attachments. All of those are going to impact how you show up at work. It's going to impact how you parent, how you react in the midst of challenges, or even how you handle success. There's something, how you handle success. How many people, or do you know of, or might be one yourself, who tend to sabotage your own successes? If you get something good, you're always going, when is the next shoe going to fall? Or even are afraid of getting to success because there's a fear of what success can mean. And also that operating system impacts how we handle terrors and traumas. And a class like Quantum Living is perfect in the day and age that we are today, because there's a lot going on. Whether it's in your personal life, we see it happening in our communities, we see it happening on the national stage, we see it happening on the international stage. So it's a wonderful time for us to look through all of those thoughts and beliefs, actually create your personal world view. So, do you know where your settings are? Do you know? You know, one experience could be, if you needed to, and if you'd like to take the second to do it, you can, but I want to keep us on track. But one of the things I do as a coach is sometimes have people just draw a wheel, and then just basically you can do the lines at like a 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, till you have pies. But the idea is, on those spokes of the wheels, and you can take an inventory at any time, you just write things like work, home, children, friends, my health, playtime, just all the things to you that you yourself feel is part of a life fulfilled, right? Your spiritual life. And if the 0 is in the center of that circle and 10 is the edge of the circle, then for you, you just ask yourself, you just put dots. Like, am I on a scale of 1 to 10 doing great in professions? I know for me, for a while, I had chosen to be born into a family spiritually. As a gay individual, I'm happily and happy pride to those of you here, to a very Asian Filipino Catholic family. So my life experiences had a very interesting, I was literally closeted gay, born here in California, studied at UC Berkeley, took my career to Texas, of all places, where I found the opportunity to be openly gay when my partner at that time, who had been open since she was 18, looked at me and said, "You are closeted gay? You were born in California," and all those things. And that's when I corrected, "Oh, no, I was born into a Filipino Catholic family. That's why I'm closeted gay." But, it was interesting because then I decided, oh, well, I'll just have this amazing career, 10, 10, 10. But relationships, not so much. Authenticity, not so much. Do you know what I mean? And then when you start looking at that, maybe a lot of money, maybe all of this. And they said, imagine having a well-balanced life. And if that was a wheel, how am I going? 10s on career, 10s on accomplishments, 10s on money, and then 0 on authenticity. And you try to roll with life in that way. I was completely out of balance. So that's an opportunity for us to see how are those stages and how are they happening for us. So let's take a look at that. What happens, and you guys have computers, what happens when your operating system isn't working very well? So in your computer, when your computer gets a bug, just shout it out. What happens?
Crash.
It crashes, right? What else? Anyone? Yeah, freezes, it crashes, it just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Sometimes it just dies, right? Can't even do it. It's like not gonna even do it anymore, right? So we're gonna take a look at that, and when we look at those opportunities, I'm gonna ask you, I needed 2 volunteers, just 2 volunteers to just join me at this table. I forgot to ask somebody sooner. I'm gonna pick somebody. Patty, you wanna join? You wanna join up here? Okay, come on up. So I'm going to just show you an example of what might happen if you've got people trying to operate. And let's just see a visual. So sometimes visuals are super easy. Okay, I got George and Patty. I'll have you over here, George. And so I'm going to have George and Patty here. Their goal, you can cheer them on, is to use the spoon I'm going to give them, which operates for them. Let's see how their operating system is and who they are as individuals. And their goal is to just, it's a simple thing like take some of the water and put it in. And they're only going to get 10 scoops and see how far they get, okay? And it can even be a race, right? So this is going to be you. So everybody's going to count together, okay? So I'm going to come around. I'll give you your spoons. Each one will get a spoon. 10, right? So that's George's. This is Patty's. I don't know if you can see Patty's. Okay, then everybody count 1 to 10. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. So I don't know if everybody can see it. Thank you, guys. Can people see this? This is Patty's. Patty's has holes in her spoon. That's like having a computer with its crashing. And so Patty's going with as much effort in her life. Oh, she did pretty good, but almost got half as much in her ability to fill her cup. And honestly, she would have had to have twice the amount of energy, twice the amount of everything, because she might want to take a moment to see what is not working for me, what is not whole. Where are the energy drainers in your life, right? Whether it's who is your worst enemy, and oftentimes I know for me, I found out it's me. I mean, once you take care of the big rocks and get to that point of pointing to people outside of yourself, and then you get to the realization that, oh, I've taken care of everybody. I've made my healthy boundaries, and now I'm stuck with myself, and this is more terrifying when I don't have anybody else outside of myself because I'm down to making my own personal choices. So thank you guys for sharing in that little demonstration, but we get to that point of understanding that when we get stressed, we ourselves, and when we get triggered, because this is going to be what we talk about, is quantum living is really when, how is it's great if you're a monk on a mountaintop and you're just meditating just like we were at the beginning, and you've got this beautiful music and it's high vibration, but that monk doesn't get on Highway 50 in construction zone time when you need to be across town on time for a really important appointment, right? So We have to learn when we get triggered that in those moments of stress and anxiety, that's when all those belief systems and all those patterns and all the programming comes to the surface. That's how we actually get to be friends with those moments in our lives, to get aha and curious instead of just going straight into reaction. And that's what we're going to go into, because we are just hardwired as human beings to go into fight or flight or flee, right? How many of us just go immediately into the fight? How many people know people who go immediately into the fight? How many people go into the flee? You just, oh yeah, just not, I can walk in the room, I can tell there's like conflict, and it's like, I don't like conflict. I will back off so fast. And then more and more, they have never really helped to identify it. A common one besides the fight or flee is the freeze. You're so like, you go into that, you don't even move. You even like, especially if there are people who have friends in ACA, children of adult alcohol, you just are like, I'm just going to be invisible. Because if I don't move, if I do something, then if I leave, I'll be in trouble. If I stay, it might say, I'm just going to be still. Right? So the aspect and that happens to us as we go through this extreme discomfort, right? And how do we identify discomfort? So for a lot of us in the spiritual community, we sometimes go, how many people know the terminology spiritually bypassing? Right? So this is what we don't want. We don't want to have a bunch of people, well, somebody comes and it's like, slap, turn the right cheek, and then it's like, oh, I know, well, God loves you, Jesus died for my sins, and therefore I don't. And you don't ever, you go straight, I forgive you. Or something is happening bad in the world and people are, and they go, oh, but you know, God is in control, and we can say that. We're not saying that the truth of the thing is that we are safe and secure, but to bypass it because the discomfort of feeling the emotions around something that happened is more uncomfortable. So we go straight to all is good, instead of actually sitting with the discomfort of the moment. We just have this thing about not wanting to, and I was the same, not wanting to feel the feelings, right? And there's knowledge in feelings, so we want to look at that. And this is important because I'm going to have you do this exercise coming up about now, about actually looking at the shadows, looking about your shadows, thinking about your past experiences. So I want you to know that in this process, there might be thinking about something in the past or a recent trigger, and again, we'll be very mindful about the triggers you can pull up, but the discomfort we're looking at might just be physical discomfort, okay? Things that just bothered you as being just inconvenience. It was really inconvenient that somebody did something, or difficult, or a nuisance, or drawback, or troublesome, or a problem. But what you're going to find when you know you're in a place of a trigger is that there could be physical discomfort, or there could be mental and worry and embarrassment, the emotional aspects that come to things that happen in your life. So embarrassment, uncomfortable, uneasy, awkward, unsettled, confused, nervous, perturbed, unsafe, distressed, and anxious. And here's the secret, and this is a hard one. And I know it seems counterintuitive. And tonight you may even pin it as saying, I don't know if I believe that to be true, Elaine. But just hold this thought. All these feelings of discomforts and all these ways that somebody might, in your mind, make you feel less than being a good person, all these levels, what if I were to tell you that no one can diminish you, or no one can diminish me but me? I just went to the Pride Parade. I take the teens who want to go. And this year was actually, believe it or not, much better. And I think it was because there was a bunch of protests happening in the morning from 10 to 1 that lasted about 4. And this year I decided to take them down at 4 o'clock on Saturday. So I think all that energy just dissipated when they were just tired. There was no more. that could come out of it. So believe it or not, but I did warn them, and they were just lovely teens. I just love our Youth of Unity. And I said, people are going to say things to you, and I just want you to be aware, and we're not going to engage because we're here to have a good time. And usually you just got to get through the gate. And once you can get through the gate, all the outside protesters, they usually don't pay money to go into the Pride Festival so that they can say bad things to you. I was surprised. Some people did. But it wasn't really, they were just handing different things out. But I did remind them that don't be diminished by words. Words do hurt, but don't be diminished by words. If you know who you are, and here in this beautiful community, we shower them what they know to be with truths, then that's their opinion, and it doesn't matter what they think. It shouldn't matter to you what anybody else thinks. They don't know you. There are people who know you, and more importantly, you need to know your value and your worth. So tonight becomes one of those, because how do you even consider, or how do you look at things that's happened in your life and you're under that red alert? And just as we talked about tonight with how do we fulfill that potential or fill our dreams, as simple as that cup of water when we may not be whole and complete, how do we get to that fulfilling our potential, right? So we're going to look at that and say, what is the extent of your potential? And what's your purpose here? And who are you really? So some of you might have seen the video that was part of the Eventbrite, and it says, you were born to be the one. But how does it get off track? Okay, how does that get off track? Well, it starts early. When you're born, you are expected to have the love and protection that you're supposed to have. You are born unto this world as a beautiful spirit and soul. You come here with this understanding, and when something doesn't happen and you don't feel that you don't get that love and protection, you get a different story. Even as young as a baby, you get, I'm not okay and I'm not good enough if you don't get the love that you were intended to have. And if you don't get the protection as a young child, you get the story or the belief that I'm not safe and life is against me. So earlier on, that story, if you get that, instead of getting the love and the protection, you pick up the beliefs that I'm not okay and I'm not good enough and I'm not safe and life is against me. And that just repeats itself over and over. You get to the point of you're separate. There's no connection. There's no connection definitely with my primary care, and it may not have been necessarily your parents. It might have been experiences you had in primary school, relatives, people of authority. It might have continued on to relationships, to your work environment, your bosses. But you tend to attract this energy that comes through, and you end up feeling this, living a life through this part that you're separated from maybe even source, separated from the people around you, and you need to then, if you're not protected and you're not safe, guess what you have to be? You've got to control things. Anyone a type A controller? That would be me. Right? Because if I control things, then I can at least manage my happiness. You know, I can not stay within the box of what I know to be safe. And sure, you can survive. In fact, yay, most of us have. No matter what, well, you wouldn't be here. It's like, yay, awesome, amazing job. But the question is it time that you do more than survive? Are you not worthy? Don't you deserve to thrive? Do you want to even explore if that's possible? So we're going to look at, do you have that story? I'm not the one, whether it's I'm not the one here, I can't do it all. We might be having these experiences that, you know, sometimes we experience life as not good enough, unworthy, powerless, inadequate. See, my story is going to be different than yours, but guess what? This is the human condition. People in desperation to control. Do we know any of those people? People in desperation at the bottom edge of it have this deep-seated, not good enough, unworthy, powerless, and inadequate, but then might assert or show up in ways that are less than loving and less than us being an us and them instead of us being all one, into this situation that life can only be seen, into this creation of an us and them. And then we see this. Life can only be seen to be against us, though, when we are living from who we are not, when we are living from that false sense and that false identity and the shadow self. So, if you're living for your shadow self, what does that mean? Are you ready to dive in and look at your worksheet and figure that out for yourself? So we're going to go into the section called Awareness. And what we'll need you to do is to grab your worksheet. And the first handout, if you have your book, you can find that in your book. And it's, I believe, on page 12. If you're joining us for the for the whole workshop and already got your workbook. Otherwise, go ahead and find your handout. And we're going to actually do the 2 exercises that are in the handout. So the first one is going to be called the Shadow Awareness Worksheet. And there are actually a couple of pages on that. I think you might have it back to back. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. And what this is for you in your own mind. You're going to see the different sections. And one section says limiting beliefs and shadow qualities. These are I am statements. So in general, just do a quick review. We'll get quiet here for a few minutes. And you're going to think, where are your limiting beliefs or things that you know when you read it, you kind of go, that's what I think about myself. Or it might not be this recent, but it might have been a lifetime pattern of things that you want to work at. So you'll notice that there are headings. So what are your limiting beliefs or shadow qualities in the area of love, in the area of your ability, in the area of self-worth, safety, and or making a difference? So what I want you to do tonight is to, as you read through those boxes, just put a check mark into them. You don't have to, don't think about it, just kind of go through it. Say, do you ever think about this about yourselves? And if there's a yes, just kind of go through. And some of them will just really resonate, and some of them will be no, that's great. But first time I did it, I just went through them really quick. And then I want you to narrow down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the top 6. So before, you don't have to worry about it, just kind of go through really quick through those 2 pages on 12 and 13 and check boxes that, maybe you think through. When I was a child, this is how I felt. In my teenage years, in my adult life, or how you show up at work. Just put yourself in different experiences and then identify the I am statements that you feel represent or are active for you. Okay? And would people like silence for that? Or do you want background ambient music? Just silence? Don't see that. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes. And as you're doing that, as you are able to identify your top 6, I'm going to tell you how to do the next section. So everybody can operate at a different time. That's okay. But when you are able to find your top 6, then you're going to actually write it into the grid here. So the top is the first words or the sentence in the small writing. So as an example, they had an example in the workbook here. Like if they took the first one under love, and it is I am unlovable, that becomes the limiting belief. I am unlovable. And then the word or the shadow quality is the all capital words in parentheses, and you'd put it underneath, under shadow quality. So ultimately, I'm going to do this with you, is you're going to fill in what are your limiting beliefs that might be active in your life, and what is the shadow. So this is on, I'll come around and I'll help you do it. So that's just what we're working on today. This is on page 12. It's in your handout. It's the very first handout. You'd open it up, and these are the 2 pages you're completing. These 12 and 13. And the instructions are there, step 1, 2, and 3. Identify first 6, and then just transfer the words, the limiting belief and the qualities. Just raise your hand if you have any questions. How you guys doing? Good? So you should be getting close to being able to, let me go back. Yeah. All right, so if you've actually identified your sex, you can, if you haven't written out the limiting belief, the full sentence, the most important is to have the words in capital. The big in capital words on the bottom box, which is the shadow quality, because it's going to look a little bit like this in this example. Like I am unlovable, which is unlovable. And you're really trying to get the shadow words. In this case, when someone believed, I don't measure up, then the shadow is, you feel less than. If I'm not worthy, unworthy. I don't trust others, so you're fearful. And I'm a disappointment, in this example, then a disappointment. So what we're trying to do is find what is your active shadows. So if you got that part, you'll see that on one of the pages, this is on the back page, which might be hard for you to do. You don't need to do it now, but on the back page, on the top, it talks about, it's actually on the bottom, this is who I am not. I am not a sense of, and then we'll show you how to put that on there. So we'll actually have you transfer that in just a moment. But that's going to be adding those words, those capital words, into the mix. Now I'm taking a look here. How you guys doing? Do you need a quickie, like bathroom break? We're more than halfway through, but we got another hour to go because I'm not going to leave you in that state of all the things that sound like that. It doesn't feel good. So I'm going to just do a couple of seconds. That way, if you're still working on it, you can get to that point of adding the words. And if you don't worry about writing all the full sentences. Ideally, what our goal is tonight is to have the back page of your handout completed. So even if you didn't want to write it out, just look for those capital words, and you'll see that there's room for 6. If you needed to add 7, go ahead. If you only have 4 or 5, that's fine. But tonight, we want you to identify your shadow. And so continue to work, but we're going to take this would be a good couple of minutes to get some water, take a bathroom break, and then we'll come back and we'll move to the next. Okay. Let's see if we're coming back now. See if there's any folks who are still outside. We're going to move forward to the next part. So, I know we can work through that project and kind of look at those words and say, is that really who I am? But remember we talked about, what people might see on the outside versus how you actually see yourself on the inside, right? So we can talk about the different ways that we show up in the world. I'm going to go back here just a second. We can talk about the different ways we show up in the world and how it impacts us, and then ask ourselves, is that really who I've come here to be? And I talked about earlier that, in life, we might show up like these beautiful, red, delicious apples, right? So we might be saying to ourselves, gosh, life is great, and everybody looks great on the outside, and we all have the titles or the roles or the way nice and shiny and looking delicious, right? But we, as people get to know you, you want to actually put on a good and, we're all come from this big barrel of all like-minded folks. But then, inside, you might actually find out, I got some missing parts to me, like that hole that we saw in the spoons that we have. Or maybe for some people, it's really obvious. You show up in the world and your less thans are not enough or unlovable. You actually show up maybe not even as well put together, even if you try to hide it behind your titles or your accomplishments or everything else. And in other cases, if you didn't get those things about love or protection or support, it may just be that, you were dropped as a kid, you were left out of that promotion or anything else. And then what happens is it still looks nice and shiny on the inside, but if you've ever opened a fruit that has been bruised and you open it up, how does it look on the inside? Not so good, not so tasty, right? So how do we know this about ourselves? And then and maybe in other ways, you're looking pretty good, a bunch of apples, but the reality is that you're feeling actually very different. Maybe you feel like an orange in a barrel of apples. Or if you have any kind of differences in a society, you might be more like me, where you're I feel sometimes like I'm a red kiwi, furry kiwi with a bunch of apples and oranges, which makes you just even more different than what the world may have you believe or not believe about yourself. I'm going to grab my power cord here, since it's coming less. So today, how do we reclaim that? We need to reclaim this power of ours and recreate this life of ours. And I need to reclaim more power into my laptop or it's going to die on you. So hold on. A power cord that got away from itself. Okay, we are in power. So how do we gain that power and create this life that we came here to live? Well, it comes from this bringing back this curtain. Is coming from this lifting of saying you acknowledge it, right? You can't get anywhere. Any 12-step program is the first thing of doing what? What's the first step to empowerment? Is to actually acknowledge you have an issue, okay? So this is why we call the quantum living awareapy, because you can't get anywhere unless you actually just become aware of what's not working. So let's pull back out. Let's bring in the light. There's so much shame. Hopefully, we've become a more evolved, hopefully we've come into this place that we can actually, maybe it's just with friends, maybe it's just in this space with total strangers, where we can say to each other, you can be in this safe circle, honest about the blemishes, the not so perfect, the traumas that were left unseen in your lives that need to surface so that they don't have power over you. So they aren't operating. It's not the operating system that you don't even have control of whether it's on or off. It's time to flip that switch and deprogram and reprogramming something better for yourself so that your life experience is greater, more rewarding, more fulfilling, all those amazing things that you want to see happening. So, who have you come here to be? Well, I used to teach this class in an all-day period of time, and then from like 9 to 4, and it was crazy because people would be stuck on this, and then another time we realized, oh, that's just too much in one whole day. It was just overwhelming. People would leave at lunchtime and sometimes not come back. And it was really unfortunate because we'd get to lunch where we opened this big, deep secrets, and it was like, no, you have to come back so you get the rest of the story, right? So I don't want to leave you. This is that understanding, but let's do the part that actually is more of the feel good, okay? So let's do the next exercise, and then we'll be able to, after that, share with each other. So we've got a little more time here. It's about 8:20. This next exercise shouldn't take more than 10, 15 minutes. So what I've given you is your cue card, and this is the next page in your handout. It's a cue worksheet. And the step 1 is to say, under the names, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 little columns or 6 rows. It doesn't have to be 6. It can be more. It could be less. But I want you to list, make a short list of individuals. They can be personal heroes. They can be dead or alive. But these are people that you truly admire. They can be family members, grandpa, your dad, your mom. Could be a coworker. It could be fictional characters. It could be superheroes, Superman, or whatever. But these are individuals that you actually believe and possess qualities that you really value, and or you wish that you had for yourselves, okay? So I want you to first just put their names on that first column, and then next to them, I want you to actually list the actual qualities of that individual. Were they funny? Were they generous? Were they spiritually grounded? Were they just all of it? Just they were adventurous, they were bold, they were courageous. Name the individuals and the 3 qualities, up to 3 qualities. And to give you a little bit of help, the page next to it, if you turn the page or on the side, is a list of possible cue qualities. So maybe you can't think of a person per se, but they're just qualities that you really admire and you wish you had more of, okay? But it's really helpful if you just think of people, and if you're not sure how to describe them, you really just think this fictional character or person is all that, and then try to figure out why you think they're all great, and then find out those different qualities. So take the time to fill in the names and the qualities, and then when you step back after you do it, notice if any of the qualities are repetitive. Like, boy, you like a lot of funny people, or you like a lot of intelligent people, or all that. Because what you want to do is then to identify your top repeating 6 or 7 qualities from the people you most admire, living, dead, fictional, and then those are going to be the cue qualities that you'll fill in. Okay, so let's take a moment and take the next few minutes to fill that out. And then when you circle the common qualities or the most important 6 or 7 qualities, you'll transfer it to the last page. And then we'll check in from there. And once you're able to get those, and if you don't see, can't look at the names, you can also look on that cue card, those cue possibilities. And if you're not getting repetitive themes on the grid that you filled out, just look over those cue qualities and see if there's any that really resonate as qualities that you really admire and you would really like to see more of yourself being. And when you got that in place, then those are going to go on that back sheet called This Is Who I've Come Here to Be. People getting close. Now I'm quickly discovering that on my copy, when I try to write the words, you can barely see them. So I'm using the edge of my paper to try to write the words so I can see them. So we're going to do a little exercise once you've got your cue card filled out, both the top and the bottom. So it's just on your back page. So if it's hard to see because of the copying, just write your cue qualities on the side and your words for your shadows on the bottom, if that works better for you. All right. And it's okay if you don't have it all done. Let's have a few of them, because now we're going to just have the fun part. And again, in every one of these courses, we get to feel free to pass. But in our staff meetings here at Spiritual Life Center, this is, we start all of our staff meetings in this process. Every one of our volunteer staff, there's some people here who are taking the cue and our board members, our management team, and even some of our core volunteers that even work in Youth Ed or any other place, is I always tell them that if you've been called to be in service here at Spiritual Life Center and say yes, since our mission statement is to transform lives, to make a positive difference in the world as we love, serve, and remember, oftentimes it's with us in this interaction with each other, we've kind of said yes. That we're going to be, just as you know, it's usually your most closest intimate relationships, the people you love, your family members that you can't get away from, even if you want to, although you can put distance. And then statistics show we spend almost more of our working hours with the people we actually work with than even our loved ones, if you added up all the hours of the day. So guess what? They get to be our amazing spiritual teachers, don't they? And they're either a lesson or a blessing, and lessons are where we lean into. So here we actually start all of our meetings with this acknowledgement that I am completely human. And my cue card might change in an afternoon. In fact, they will always change, but there's some aspects that are deeply rooted in kind of that back of your mind and consciousness. So we're calling it forth. My excitement is I've been the Q coach here since 2017, and we sometimes teach Q 2 to 3 times a year. We went down for a little bit during COVID, but this is my first of 2 times, minimum of 2 times I'll teach this year. And I check in. What I found my first 4 years was my because I was just getting into this, and I was like you, I'm like going, yeah, no, I don't want to go here. And I actually worked on those shadows and had to ask myself those things. And there were things on those shadow cards that were things like I felt like a misfit and unlovable. And there was definitely a couple of them that were very deep-seated for me. And I can just share that being in this loving community and finding the willingness to actually lower my own shield to let people see the not so pretty shiny side of my inner mind, it was amazing to me how I was able to actually go, they all can't be wrong. Because who and what I see in myself seems to be this interesting loop of my belief of things that have happened that got somehow on a running track. And I'm excited that it just became diminished because I just no longer believed that I didn't have a place I fit in, and I didn't have and that I'm not lovable and everything else. So that was amazing. And so we periodically do this, and then sometimes because we're just interacting with each other for that moment in day, anybody just have a bad day? Wouldn't you like to have people have a sign that just says, I am in this space right now, so that you would know? So our staff meetings start with us being honest and real. Sometimes you can just read your cue cards because that's just really subconsciously what's happening. But sometimes we actually, in that moment, when we're getting still and James does the opening prayer, on a side of the sheet I ask, how am I feeling today? Am I feeling judgmental? Am I feeling agitated? Am I feeling just annoyed? Am I feeling taken advantage of? Well, we'll talk about that. What are those feelings? And if you join the class, you'll actually learn the difference between feelings, faux feelings, feelings that aren't really feelings, and then deep-seated beliefs that no longer serve you. But let me tell you how amazing it is when all of us check in and we can either realize that there's a collective energy because we haven't talked to each other in that type of way, and we find out that we all have this energy of unrest. And it's like, oh, it must be an energetic thing that the world is going through. And then other times, you can hear someone say where they're really at, and then I get to make the mental note of, today might not be the day to bring up A, B, C, D, E. Or if in the meeting they show up agitated or whatever, you know what? They asked me, please have compassion for me when I'm being. Does that make sense? So I'm going to share you, I wanted to update this. A couple of the staff members are here because they wanted to update their cue card. This is actually surprising for me, a little bit different, but this is how we say it in our staff meetings, and I'm going to give you that opportunity to just go around the room and find 3 people. You don't have to say anything. You can just read it straight as the words have here, and I'm apologizing right now because the shadow card is on the bottom and the cue card is on the top in this picture. But we start with please have compassion for me when I am being, because this is who I have come here to be. And then you name your cue cards. And then we're going to have a debrief as soon as we do this. Just find 3 people, say it. After you're done, you can bow, just say like namaste, but no discussions. So the idea is 3 people. If you need to be with someone you know to be comfortable, if somebody has mobility issues, we can come to you. Just Like, just stay seated and let us know. If you don't want to participate, just look down. That's like telling people you don't want to participate. And that's okay too. But it's going to sound like this, and I'm happy to share mine, and then go to each to participate with you in this practice. So mine will go something like this: please have compassion for me when I am being not enough, less than, fearful, fake, powerless, and in lack. Because this is who I've come here to be: courageous, resilient, compassionate, a visionary, heart-centered, joy-filled, and fun-loving. Okay, so let's take that moment, find your 3 people, and share following. Please have compassion for me. circle back if you haven't already gone to your one or your two or three people. And what I forgot to say is that when we are in our staff meeting, after we ask for compassion because we've come here to be, everyone answers back, and so it is. Meaning that, and what that does is there's this agreement about acknowledging, saying we see you, and we actually hold you as your highest self, even if today you're far from it. There's another book that's called, highly recommend it, we sell it at the Hub, called the 12 Traits of Conscious Leaders. And it talks about just knowing where you are with the line, that the line is the most important thing and everything is location, location, location. And it's about, are you above the line or below the line? Reverend Deborah always says, something cracks me up because she says, I'm on the line with my foot hanging down, which below the line simply means you are totally off your cue card. You know what I mean? It's just like, but isn't there power in just knowing it? It's power in just knowing it's not who I came here to be, but I'm just not. I'm in my full human mode today. And that's totally okay. When has somebody been able to tell you it's okay? We work towards this issue of every day. James will say to us when he asks, is there anybody new with us today on Sunday? And then if nobody is new or visiting for the first time, then he'll say, well, you know, we always say if you're different or better than the day before, then you are new. And so we'll greet one another as the new people that we are becoming, right? So we're gonna pass the mic because there were some assumptions it's made. There's a couple of things I'll ask. In doing this exercise, first of all, things to ask was it surprising to you? Was it hard or difficult to actually fill out the shadows? And then was it easy to come up with qualities about people you admire? But then there was that trick of saying, now put it on your cue card that this is who I came here to be. What? That's what Martin Luther King is. That's what Mother Teresa is. That's what Oprah is. That's what superhero is. I didn't say that was me. But here's the spiritual principle, good or bad. If you spot it, you got it. If you spot it, you got it. You can't even see qualities. And you know what? That goes both ways. That's the issue. If you have that most annoying person in your life, go within and ask, how is that me maybe in a former life? How is that me when I'm not in my highest self? What is about them? Or perhaps they're just mirroring, whether they might be showing up differently, but what's the core way they're behaving? What are they in need of? And is that a need that I'm not taking care of myself as well? You know? So it's an interesting thing. So I've got a mic, Cameron has a mic, and then I would love to hear even experiences of how was it to speak it out loud? Was that uncomfortable? It's so second nature for our staff now because we do it all the time. We all have been a lot of different meetings in the board. Because you know what? It's about being comfortable in your skin. It's about not being ashamed about who you are and who you know you have this potential, unlimited potential, if you're willing to acknowledge that these are thoughts that you have that, believe it or not, are just not true. Each one of us are sparks of the divine. We're magic. Now, we got a little bit of, you came out that way and then life happened. So there is some work that can be done. What happened to you is absolutely not your fault, but it's not only your responsibility and your ability to make a change or difference. Patty's got a mic. I got a mic. We would love to hear about your experience. Anybody want to share? We got Brandy up here.
This experience was challenging to say things out loud that I think about myself in quiet and private. But it was kind of freeing to know that other people, when I heard some of my own things repeated on other people's cards, it felt like, oh, okay, I'm not the only person that feels like that. And then it was funny that you mentioned Mother Teresa. She was one of the people on my chart that you're right, that the qualities that she has that I so admire, you know, that she's compassionate and spiritual and bold, that those are things that I can be also.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Yeah.
I'm glad the instruction was just to read it and not discuss it, because that I could do.
Yeah.
Just, read what's on the page, and that was helpful.
Thank you. Over here, Naomi.
It felt very vulnerable to say those things out loud. So I'm glad that we got to do that just kind of one-on-one and go around the room. That was really helpful. I don't think I could have said that on the mic to everybody. Then I definitely felt like when I was listening to other people's who I've come here to be, I found myself going, oh, why didn't I put that thing down?
Yes.
And like, oh, there's only 6 spots. Can I add more things?
And yes, you can. That's why you have it on the work. The first time I did it, and we did it with more people and more, you hear someone else's and you go, oh no, that's more, it's more fine-tuned. That's the one. Like, I think I said courageous, but then someone used brave. And I think, yeah, it's like that song, I just want to be brave. So I thought, I'm going to change mine to brave. And so yes, that's half the part of sharing. Anybody else? Thank you. Back there.
Now, did you ask us to read it or comments?
Whatever you want to do. If you want to read it out loud. Or
Now, Anna and I had done some stuff with Women of Spirit, so we knew each other. And so it was okay to be vulnerable with her. Mm-hmm. And reading some of this who I have come to become, or who, wait a second.
who I have come
Both
here
of
to be.
both of these brought tears to my eyes, like the your shadow card, flawed, less than, these things, brought tears to my eyes because those hurt. Mm-hmm. And then, anyways, the things I've come here to become, it's like, and then one just popped out that I didn't see, and it was determined. And because I looked there, and that circled that one, it's there a couple times too.
Beautiful. Thank you. Paul had his hands up.
I had a little bit of a problem reading the card. The second time around was easier, but the first time I read it, who I have come here to be, my inner critic came out and said, oh, now you think you're all that, huh?
Yes.
It's like, oh boy, more work to be done.
Yeah. Little bit of that unworthy to be that magnificent. It's like Marianne Williamson is, you're not afraid of your biggest fears. Your fear is that you truly are magnificent, right? Anyone else want to debrief that? There's a couple, Anna and then Pam. I'll give these to you. Yeah.
This was really powerful for me because I saw that in the shadow card that was sort of all my trauma, and then the cue card is the healing process.
That's right.
And one of them was speaking, and I realized that I don't have to become a famous speaker. I just have to speak, right here, right now.
Beautiful. Let's go. 2 more. Pam? Pam is there.
Maybe because I'm older now, but in looking at some of these things, I think the past kept jumping in, and I had the question, is that real for me now? And there was this initial rejection of some of that, no, that's not true. And then I start thinking about some things that I have faced, in the last year or so, and think, oh yeah, it's still there. I thought I was done with that.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is just a taste in a 2-hour session of what quantum living training is all about. And I love what you said. I made sure, and you can take it later. Some of us hold cards. So I have these cards, so you can take a Sharpie when you're done, and I'll have Patty put them in the back. But it's a card so you can keep it or tear it down and put it in your purse and remind yourself. I used to have a staff person who'd put it in her name badge. And the idea is it's two sides of one coin. It's like the yin and yang. You don't have to get rid of it. Your shadow is a part of who you are. It's to love. That inner child that was perfect, whole, and complete, but just got a different story, circumstances in their minds. And we unleash that a little bit more when we get going. So as I said, that this is the beginning of next week, I actually start the 6-week training course right here. You can come and just join us. And there is a workbook that actually has other things, but feel free to come if you'd like. It's just for a love offering every week. And next week, the first module is going to be about identifying the enemy minds. And you are going to start to work through some of those triggering moments, something in the week or month that something happened that triggered you. And you're going to get used to actually getting used to feeling and identifying those things. What are your emotional triggers, okay? And then we're going to look at differentiating what are real feelings, faux feelings, and beliefs. That was incredibly powerful for me the first time I went, because I realized I wasn't really feeling. I was saying judgments about what was happening. So that annoyed me, or that. And then people are going, my Q coach who first did it, every time they do it, she goes, Elaine, annoyed is not a feeling. What do you feel? And I realized that, again, that was spiritual bypassing. If I can understand what was happening, then I can be in my mind and said, that just happened because her mom died. She didn't mean to be ugly. And so, instead of saying, Elaine, how did it make you feel? It hurt me. It made me sad. It made me feel alone. Do you know what I mean? So for me to actually quit saying what's happening to me and actually owning how it made me feel. Do you know what I mean? Very powerful second week. And then we'll go through next module. What did I do? And then 3 was reframing everything that's happening and how do we go into authentic action to actually reframe all that monkey mind and tell a new story, a story that works better for you. It's like changing the software. If a software doesn't work for you, change into software so you're not running on an operating system that isn't doing it for you. Those are open here on Wednesday. We won't be live streaming because, as people said, things you want to share, you want to hold a container. We'll go a little bit deeper. But they will be recorded for those who might miss one and you just want to read. We'll go offline. We won't record or any of the real personal information. But the last 4 is debriefing. You're going to learn in 3 weeks, 3 classes, how to do this process, an actual process, a tool. And then for 21 days, we're going to actually practice it. You'll do a worksheet every day. The first worksheet, the first week, are external things that outside of you bug you, the traffic, people, incidents, your health, whatever. We'll spend a week, and then the second week goes a little deeper, internal triggers. That's you, your thoughts, your own actions. How did that hurt? Somebody did something to you, and then you reacted. So what triggers were coming from you? Then you go, I'm just a horrible person. I have a bad temper. So it's really you beating up on you. And so we're going to do worksheets on that. And then the last week, we're going to actually say, how does this past come into play? That's always this underlying current. And then how do we reframe it? So the last 3 weeks, we meet next door, small circle, intimate, and those who wish to share, share. If you don't wish to share and you've been in this group and this journey, I ask you to come and witness, because trauma truly isn't what happened to you. Trauma is something of an injustice or something that went unwitnessed, that went without an empathetic person. So we create the space for other people to speak it. And as you found tonight, in a very small way, there is power. It's like owning it to speak your experience. And the healing is all yours, self-directed, but if you're willing to, you will speak out loud your worksheets. And it is powerful. Because remember, what's done for one is done for all. And I promise you, by hearing maybe there's a dozen of you, or only 7 of us or 4 of us, but only 2 people are willing to debrief, it never fails that something that somebody went through will resonate at your core, and you'll be able to see the transformation and the bravery they took to speak it, to have us witness it, and to see the relief of how they turned it around to create a new story that now is the vibration and is the new you. Does that make sense? So I'm going to close tonight with sharing this beautiful video about Can You Relate? And then we'll call it a night. This is by King and Country.
Does life hit you so hard that you've been knocked down? Have you gone too far to find the middle ground? Did they raise you so high just to pull you back down? Have you been so lost you could never be found? 'Cause I've been real, I've been fake. Been a sinner, been a saint. I've been right, I've been so wrong. Yeah, I've made my mistakes. I don't know what it's like to be you. You don't know what it's like to be me. What if we're all the same in different kinds of ways? Can you relate? We both know what it's like to be hurt. We both know what it's like to feel pain. But I think it's safe to say we're on to better days. Can you relate? Can you relate? Have you ever been left when you should have been loved? Has there ever been a time when you stayed but you should have run? 'Cause I've been real, I've been fake. Been a sinner, been a saint. I've been right, I've been so wrong. Yeah, I've made my mistakes. Now I don't know what it's like to be you. You don't know what it's like to be me. What if we're all the same in different kinds of ways? Can you relate? We both know what it's like to be hurt. We both know what it's like to feel pain. But I think it's safe to say we're on to better days. Can you relate? Can you relate? Can you relate? Can you relate? I don't know what it's like to be. You don't know what it's like to be me. But by the grace of God, we'll see each other's heart. Can you relate?
Thank you all. Thank you for being here tonight. Namaste. And I will have these cue cards in the back. And if you haven't already had an opportunity, we'll take any love offerings for Spiritual Life Center. It just allows us to continue to offer these programs that we do. Yeah? Yay.